huge political storm has broken out over the revised GDP or growth numbers released by the government on Wednesday. The new data shows that GDP growth in the UPA era was less than what was thought. So it's actually been revised downwards. So between 2005 and 2014, it says that the growth rate was at 6.7%. This is opposed to 8%, which is what was believed to be the case earlier. The data also shows that the maximum growth rate in the UPA years was at 8.5% in 2010-11, which is significantly lower than the 10.3% that had been estimated for that particular year earlier. So you do hear, for instance, the Congress talking about double-digit growth as a result of that. So this new data now debunks that. Now, the Congress accused Prime Minister Modi and Finance Minister Arun Jaitley of malicious and fraudulent jugglery to mask the true state of the economy. But Mr. Jaitley has called the new data credible, comprehensive and a better reflection of the economy. In a series of tweets, Mr. Chidambaram, however, called the revised numbers a bad joke, while Arun Jaitley reminded him that the Congress did not object when the back series GDP data was introduced in 2015 and the revised growth figures then turned out to be higher in the last 2 years of UPA's rule. So the question is, should we believe this new data or is this a political move? This actually makes Mr. Modi look very, very good just ahead of the election. So is it just a coincidence that this data came out on the eve of elections? Here in the studio with us, we have Professor Arun Kumar, senior economist, M.K. Venu, founding editor of The Wire, senior journalist Aarti Jairath, Mr. Deshratan Nigam is with us tonight, also Shama Mohammed of the Congress Party, and the former chief economic advisor to the Government of India, Dr. Arvind Virmani, also joining us this evening. Actually, I'd like to ask Dr. Arvind Virmani first. What do you make of these revised GDP numbers, sir? A lot of analysts have commented in the last 24 hours that they feel it wasn't perhaps appropriate for the Niti Aayog to have released this data. They've normally not done this before, and that by doing that, it was a political message that was being sent out. What do you think?
Well, I am not competent to comment on politics. I'm sure you have 5 other people there. But factually, that is correct. The GDP data is generally put out by the Statistic Department, as far as I remember, from whatever, 2 decades. So in that sense, clearly, this is a departure. As far as the back series is concerned, from the beginning I had written within the first week that this basic new rebasing and the new data which is being used for the 2011 base is a good thing, and the IMF and World Bank had vetted that, and eventually everybody came around to that view. Now, as far as the back series is concerned, we were all asking for it from that day, and it has been a bit of a puzzle why it's taken so long. I used to ask the Department of Statistics where, when I met the people there, I don't want to name them, and the answer I got is coming. It's always was, it's coming, there is some problems with it, it has not been cleared by the technical committee, etc. So clearly it was a difficult thing. I haven't gone into the details of it, but we can discuss some of the aspects of it when you come around to it.
But Dr. Virmani, I just want to ask you a follow-up question then, because you have this data that was released yesterday, the back series GDP as it's called, which completely differs from a report that a subcommittee of the National Statistical Commission had submitted back in July. And its back series calculation then actually showed that the Indian economy grew at a much faster pace under the UPA in those same years, and also registered double-digit growth in not 1 but in 2 fiscal years. So how do we sort of square off that, what that report said in July, with this data now?
Right. So that's a very good question. The head of that committee happens to be an old colleague and good friend of mine. So my comment is no aspersion on him, but frankly, from historically, I have seen many revisions in India and across the world. Generally, when you rebase, and this is inherent in the rebasing, is that past growth rates go down and future growth rates go up. So in that sense, I was a little puzzled by the earlier data, but that doesn't mean I'm endorsing the new revised downward data, I mean, generally the growth rate gets reduced on average, and this is like 99% of data revisions across the world. But I am not specifically endorsing that it should be 1% less or 0.5% or 1/4%. That I am not in a position at this point to say.
Okay, all right. Professor Arun Kumar, your first thoughts on this. Is this an accurate picture then of the UPA years, or if you want to answer a political question, do you think it's too much of a coincidence that this has come out on the eve of the general election?
So, GDP data is always an estimate. It's based on certain assumptions. There are large number of sectors, you have to estimate each sector, and there are different methods by which you estimate it, right? Now, what has happened is that this time, not only has the base year been changed, but the database on which it is based is also changed from the old database to what is called the Corporate Affairs MCA 21. So, you have large number of companies data coming in, but that data is not available for the past. It started getting available from 2007-8.
Because the base year was changed earlier.
Base year was changed, but
that's the commonality here.
That's the commonality, but the point is that data itself has changed. So the new data is from the base year 2011-12, but that's only available up to 2007-8, but also not comparable. That's why the new database was shifted to 2011-12. Now, when you try and go it back to up to 93-94, because that's what was tried to be done, then you don't have a comparable database. So you need a new methodology. That's what the subcommittee of the National Statistical Commission did. It applied a new methodology called the production shifting approach. Okay. Now, there's all technical, but the point is they got a higher figure on this because they had a particular. This committee has adopted a different methodology. It has a different way of estimating it. So we have to see what is this method and what was that method, and therefore then come to an argument about whether this method is right or that method is better. But as you rightly said, it's a bit of a coincidence that this has come out so close now to the elections, where now, see, earlier the controversy was that why was the rate of growth coming higher? The finance minister said they were having a larger fiscal deficit, they were being bad, the NPAs have been created because of that. Now the question is that we must understand that during that time we had the global crisis in 2007-8, which led to a decline in the rate of growth, and yet the rate of growth was better. Now we've had two shocks to the economy which are policy induced, demonetization and GST, and that is not getting incorporated into the database. So my argument is that what is being shown today in terms of growth is actually overestimated because the effect of GST and demonetization is not in this.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
So this particular thing is also unreliable because the big shocks to the economy are not contained in this. So we need to study more.
So Venu, let me ask you the political question. Does this show in a sense then that the entire fight in 2019 is going to center around who handled the economy better? Is that going to be the bottom line, despite the rhetoric being on temple caste and all these other extraneous things? But ultimately, both sides will want to tell people this is how we handled the economy and I did it better, and that's why you're having this fight over numbers.
See, Nidhi, let me say something straight away. People do not go by GDP numbers or technical methodologies, etc., being used to arrive at.
But it sounds very impressive.
Yeah, no, but
say that, it was 10%.
People go by what they experience. So I'll just tell you, every GDP number, every methodology has to pass some smell test, some common sense test. So I'm just going to lay down 3-4 common sense issues. In the 4.5 years of NDA government, now they claim that their GDP growth so far is 7.3 as opposed to UPA years 6.7. But you check the UPA years and the NDA years, some other correlative indicators. In the UPA years, the credit to industry, bank credit to industry was growing at 20% plus, exports 25% plus, booming. In the NDA years, exports 0. In the 4.5 years, exports 0 growth. Credit to industry very low, and if you take a universe of 1100 companies, what Arun was saying, in the NDA years, 1100 companies, their earnings have grown at 2% a year. In the UPA years, 20% a year, 1100 companies earnings.
So you're saying what is happening on the ground is not matching with the numbers that are being
thrown out. This is exactly what Raghuram Rajan said. I distinctly remember Raghuram, when he was RBI governor, said, the GDP figures of the NDA period do not reflect what is happening on the ground, do not seem to reflect, he used the word do not seem to reflect what's happening on the ground. I rest my case.
Okay, well, Mr. Nigam, often the BJP has been accused of trying to rewrite history. Is it trying to rewrite the history of the economy as well?
History cannot be rewritten, it can be hidden only. That's the difference I see it. You can restore it, you can't rewrite it. And see, if you, there's one thing, people don't go by the numbers except some people like us, you know, who may get into data, but the common people of this country will see what changes in their life have come about in last 4.5 years. And when I see that, then I look at, you know, the schemes like Mudra Yojana, where 13.4 crore loans have been given, of which 50,000 rupees loan are about 90%. And you reject half of them, it will still come to about 6.5 crores people who would have got employment, self-employed. And I'm rejecting the even half the number of that, which is a very higher rate. And the new EPF accounts that have been opened in last 2 years, because they changed the criteria, because anybody who leaves the
No, but how does this, like I asked Arvind Virmani as well, how do we look at these two totally different reports on the GDP numbers? I mean, within 6 months, it's gone from higher rate of growth in the UPA to lower rate of growth. It's been downgraded. How did that happen?
As Arun Kumar ji pointed out, there are a lot of assumptions here which are not yet in public domain. Now, the 2 years the UPA, last 2 years of the UPA regime have shown higher growth, and which was also welcomed by them, by the same yardstick. So let's wait for some time for certain data to come in public domain. It's not that it was painted with some one brush. Obviously, 2 years have gone up there also. So some credit has to be given that in the last 2 years, economy did improve.
So that was a point that Finance Minister Arun Jaitley raised as well, that when the GDP estimates were earlier revised, the earlier time, and they actually showed UPA's growth rate to be higher, that time the Congress was very happy. And cannot say that now it doesn't suit them and therefore you're crying foul. You know,
a couple of points for that. First, Nidhi, why was the methodology changed in 2014? You have changed the methodology. 15. You have increased it by 2014.
The results came in 2015,
yeah, but it was
the
changed
methodology was changed earlier during the UPA regime.
Okay, so why, my question is, it was raised by 1.5%. If you have raised it, we have asked for the back series for the past, like they all were saying. Why don't you change what is, you know, the older numbers also? And it has gone up. So ours was, we had an average of 8.2 for the 10 years. So it should have gone up. Number two, my point is the 2 months ago, the National Statistics Commission came out with a report saying that.
That's what I was talking about.
Yeah, that is what I'm saying. So that is the autonomous body. That's what I want to make clear, which you are not saying. That is the one which everybody looks at. We are asking, when a national autonomous body came out, who is Niti Aayog? Niti Aayog is somebody which comes under the present government. So the Niti Aayog has told this particular statistic committee, that is the Central Statistic Office, to come out with these numbers, and there is no logic, Nidhi. One, let us take out, we know this government has fudged numbers. Let me tell you one thing. The demonetization happened 3 years ago. We have been asking, how much money has been demonetized? How much has come back? Nothing. We get to know now that almost everything has come.
The government has come on
let me
record.
speak. I did not interrupt you, miss. It is not justified.
No, I'm supplying
I'm
you
telling you,
data.
I want to, so 99, everything has come back. That's a lie. They said, 3 to 4 lakh crore will not come back. The EPFO data, which I want to correct, the EPFO data, Mr. Srivastava, the chief statistician, says it is not job creation. The 90 lakh was job formalization. Another lie. They said it was job creation. So that is again
so
fudge.
You think they're fudging? You think these are just fudge
They are not
figures?
giving us the report on how many farmer suicides have happened. And recently, the Agricultural Department said that demonetization, till now they kept quiet, has affected the farmers tremendously.
Now they did a U-turn on that.
So what I'm trying to say is that everything is fudging, and also the time when it's come just before the elections. Why should it come out now? And there's no logic, because 90,000 crores by investors have been removed from this country. Our exports in 2014 was 350 billion, and now it's 160 billion. So how does the GDP come up to this?
I think that's what the point.
There's no logic.
So Aarti,
logic is what I'm
asking.
Then I'll come to Aarti.
Arunji made a very important point. This methodology was changed in 2015 by UPA. 2014 and by UPA.
What I said is data came out in 2015.
Yes.
The methodology was changed earlier during the.
So that's a very important point.
Why don't you give us the back? We've been asking for the back series.
So hold on, wait for some time.
We have to wait for the next government to
come next year.
In this regard, it's an important point that the 2 years for which the data showed a higher growth during the UPA regime was not based on the past series. We are discussing two different things. The past series is based on assumptions, whereas the new methodology had given a higher rate. So these two are two different things, which Arvind Virmani had also raised, that this 2 years increase is in the new series.
And
That's
Nidhi,
not based
So
on the old methodology.
let's just get Aarti's sort of political take on this. I can also see a lot of commentary now already in the foreign media as well. The Wall Street Journal has written a piece saying that this GDP flip-flopping has exposed Mr. Modi to accusations that his administration is manipulating indicators to better his
Foreign
re-election
investors,
chances.
Nidhi, do not believe our
because
GDP.
90,000
I'm going to
crores
talk
has
about
been
that.
taken out
They
from
do
this
not
country.
believe us.
What do you think is going on here
Well,
on the
you
eve
know,
of elections?
listen, Nidhi, there are three quick points I want to make.
I mean,
Firstly, if you're going to flip-flop data on data like this, it's going to be, you know,
Credibility.
Yeah, the government's credibility is really lowered. I mean, we are now, as common people, looking at the government and saying, okay, which government do we believe? UPA, NDA, or the next government? I mean, you know, where does the government's credibility stand when you're flip-flopping like this? Number one. Number two, I want to use the weather analogy. You know, when the Met Department releases temperatures, they tell you temperature is going to be so-and-so, and then they tell you real feel is this. Whatever the government may say about GDP growth, there is such a thing as real feel. And if you see the reports that are coming out from all these state elections that are happening, particularly Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, what is everybody talking about? Everybody is talking about the economy. They're all talking about economic distress.
Not the Gotra, really?
No, I'm not talking about political parties. Political parties are talking about Gotra, but people are actually talking about the economy, because the real feel has been quite bad over the last 2-3 years. There's been no job growth. There's been, you know, the demonetization shock is still rippling through the economy.
And today, Arvind Subramanian has called demonetization.
That's right.
Draconian, which is very strong.
And so I suspect that because the government is coming under so much criticism for demonetization and for the way GST has been implemented, I think they're now trying to, you know, sort of change the perception by releasing these figures